Good morning. It's Thursday morning, and today you're listening to James Bond Radio. This is 30 Days of SPECTRE, and today is day 12, and we're going to be looking at the wonderful, the only, Franz Oberhauser. What do you think about that, Tom?
I'm excited.
Franz Oberhauser.
I'm excited. I like a bit of Franz Oberhauser, or, as he now likes to be called, Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Wow. God,
now, we held hands during that scene, didn't we, when he reveals his new name. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing that name on screen again. It was beautiful. I liked it. Nice.
I was kind of concentrating on my hand not being crushed too much, but I still enjoyed watching it. It was thoroughly good. It's cool, isn't it? It's cool. Okay, so Oberhauser Blofeld. Now, we kind of knew it was going to happen, didn't we? We knew who was going to be Blofeld. We knew what was happening. As soon as you see that picture of Bond with Hans Oberhauser and the burnt out little face next to him, it kind of told you what was going to happen.
Yeah. There's some interesting discussion to be had about this, right?
Yeah.
Now, we all knew as soon as the film was called Spectre.
Yeah.
First things first, we knew Blofeld had to be in this film. Whether he was going to be the villain or whether he was just going to show up at the end and be a tie-in to the next film, whatever. Blofeld has to be in a film with Spectre in it. There's just no question about it. Then, when they cast Christoph Waltz, it's like, well, hold on a minute. I can't think of a better actor on this planet to be Blofeld than Christoph. So there it was. And then they played the little game where they're like, oh, no, he's Franz Oberhauser. You know, there's nothing going on. And it's kind of like, come on, just tell us. We know he's Blofeld. No, he's Oberhauser. Which they did with Moneypenny, of course, didn't they, with Skyfall? She's Field Agent Eve. What's her last name? Oh, no, just Field Agent Eve. Yeah. Right. And you kind of knew something was up with Moneypenny, and we all knew something was up with Blofeld and Oberhauser here. So what do you think? Because the thing is, when you keep something like that secret, it's supposed to, the reveal should have been a moment, but it's not, because we all knew it was coming. So it was like, as soon as he's in that torture chair, and he calls him Franz, and then he says, "Oh, Franz Oberhauser died on that mountain," and I was like, "Here it comes! This is the moment." That's why I touched you and held you close at that moment, because I knew it was coming, and there it was, and it's just. I think, again, that's another thing that people are kind of, with the bad reviews, are kind of locking into, is that we all knew that. So why do the little sort of pretense beforehand? What are your thoughts on that whole shenanigans?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of mentioned it a little bit before, but I didn't mind the whole trying to hide it thing. I think if they'd been from the start, okay, we've got Blofeld, Christoph Waltz is Blofeld, everyone would kind of go, okay, great, he's going to be awesome. Would we have lost anything from finding out he was Blofeld for definite straight away? I don't know.
See, there is an argument, right, that you could have announced him as Ernst Stavro Blofeld at the press conference. Everyone goes ape shit. Oh my God, it's Blofeld. And then the twist could have been that he used to be Franz Oberhauser. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that could have been the reveal in the film, and it would be like, oh, that would be something we wouldn't be expecting.
Yeah.
So there is that argument as well. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it, because you kind of knew he was going to be Blofeld, and from the picture, you kind of knew, obviously you're told he's Oberhauser anyway, but you kind of put that link together. Whereas if he had definitely been Blofeld, but then I mean, that might have been better. It's hard to play that in your head just to see if that would have worked or not.
Because the funny thing is like, if you're going to pretend he's not Blofeld, then don't have him in shadow in the trailer. Don't have him wearing the jacket in the trailer, because it's just like, well, hold on a minute. You're blatantly showing us who he is, but at the same time saying that's not who it is. And I think that's kind of rubbed people up the wrong way. Obviously, that Star Trek movie, Star Trek Into Darkness, wasn't it? It had all that shenanigans about Khan coming back, old Benedict Cumberbund, and all that stuff. And that turned a lot of people off. So I'm surprised they played that angle with this. I really am.
Yeah. I still don't think it was that, I didn't distract for me in any way, but I can see how some people might have.
Like, it doesn't bother me at all, but but knowing how people have reacted to it, I'm kind of like, that was an odd one to play, considering sort of what's, considering how Moneypenny was leaked. We all knew she was going to be Moneypenny and all that kind of stuff. That was a funny one, but maybe doing it that way around would have made that twist more palatable to people who hate the twist. I don't hate it. I think it's all right. Not bothered by it at all. But I'm just happy Blofeld's back at the end of the day.
Totally, man, totally. It's so cool that obviously they got Christoph, and he didn't disappoint. He didn't disappoint one bit. Every single scene that he's in is enigmatic. Like well, where should we start? I mean,
I tell you what, let's start at the beginning. Let's start with the Spectre meeting room.
Yeah.
So, or maybe just before that, obviously Bond rocks up, doesn't he? You see all the posh cars in the car park.
Oh, yeah. I want to be a member of Spectre.
It certainly pays well by the looks of things, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So there's that, all the posh cars. Bond walks up, does the God knows how you say what he says. He does the Mickey Mouse line. How did you feel about that? Did that make you laugh, or was that silly?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it was the right sort of humour. It was, taking the piss a bit. I thought it was good. Yeah, that sort of worked for me. It wasn't forced at all. I really liked it.
I tell you what, there's a lot of expletives in this film, aren't there? I think there's 3 shits and an arsehole. And an arsehole in Italian. So that's interesting. I think this must be the most foul-mouthed of all the Bond films. He does the old Spectre ring thing, goes in. He's up in the sort of balcony area looking down.
He's got the cheap seats, hasn't he?
He's got the cheap seats, definitely. And then obviously they're having their meeting. They're talking about all the pharmaceutical companies that they're kind of controlling, and all the females that they've kind of put into the leisure market and all that kind of business. So they're busy, basically. And then, I mean, that massive table. I mean, again, we saw that in the teaser, but like just seeing that massive table is like going all the way back to Thunderball, man, and that just pleases me. That scene, I loved it. What did you think?
I mean, it's definitely, obviously, echoing the Thunderball Spectre meeting without a doubt. I mean, with Thunderball, it's a bit different. They didn't have a table, did they? They all had like their separate chairs type things. But what I love probably more about this meeting is
they had a table in Thunderball, didn't they?
No, they're all sat at chairs. There wasn't a table there because, I mean, Largo walks down the middle, doesn't he?
When he's talking about his plan. Yeah, all right, go on, carry on.
But what I love about this one is the amount of people that you see. Like the amount of members of the Spectre. It's not like 10. It's not like 15 or 20. There's at least 50 of them there. Everywhere you look, there's like people, like you said, all up in the balconies, loads of them. Obviously, the main 20 odd or whatever around the table. You've got people sort of standing still all around the wall. When you look, just before we see Hink's entrance, you look back and there's other people sort of behind dark glass looking in. And then you got obviously Blofeld and his guys come in. You just see so many people all dressed in black, all looking sort of villainous, and it's excellent. And I love that. And the atmosphere is brilliant. You've got, is it Vogel, is that Bridget Miller's character, I think, talking about I think that's her, talking about this, that and the other, and obviously the guy with the cool voice, he's awesome as well, isn't he? But yeah, no, I love it. I think it's great. The fact that they're controlling all these sort of companies, like you said, in the pharmaceuticals, they're like obviously marketing the drugs, they're getting money that way, and because the pharmaceutical companies are pretty much like some of the evils of capitalism, a lot of people would say.
Ruthless cunts, those people. Absolutely. Mind my language, but yeah, absolutely.
Because you hear about people who like have found, cures for, various things, give them away for free. They could have been billionaires, but you would have been an arsehole if you'd done that. Nowadays, it's like, fucking patent that, we're going to make loads of money out of it, and it's complete and utter bollocks, isn't it? It's complete and utter bollocks. But the fact that Spectre's kind of behind that sort of thing is great, and I'd love it if you got I'd absolutely fucking love it if you got some fucking arsehole of a boss who works for a conglomerate pharmaceutical who goes to watch Spectre and feels a bit shitty inside. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything, but it's suddenly, it's sort of, he kind of thinks, fuck, that kind of hit a nerve.
Yeah,
and that sort of, if that film has that effect, I'll be really happy, because fucking what arseholes.
James Bond changing the world one man at a time. Absolutely.
That's
good
it.
stuff.
That's it.
So basically what we have is they're having a little catch-up meeting, just a little catch-up, find out what's been going on. And then we have a brilliant entrance. We have the double doors opening. And then everybody immediately gets silent. They all stand up, and we see Blofeld in shadow walking into the room, sits down at the head of the table. And then what I love about this is he just exudes power on every level without doing anything. Like, he doesn't do a thing. He sits there. He just turns his head. The guy comes over, what do you want? And he just moves his microphone in front of his mouth.
I love that.
Such a nice touch, because he's too powerful. He's not even going to move his own microphone. And I love every time he wants to speak to the dude, he just literally, like the second time he does it, he turns his head it's almost imperceptible, so slightly. And then the guy is like on him straight away. I love how like sort of almost ghostly he is when he comes into that room. I think that's great.
You never see him properly, do you? He's in shadow.
Yeah.
And as soon as the doors open, everyone stands upright. And like, he sort of, after the microphone comes in, don't let me stop you, or whatever it is. Don't let me interrupt you. And like, everyone sort of sits down. But it's just the power that this guy exudes. You know, everyone will sort of, you know, everyone's scared of him. You can sort of tell they'd do anything, and you know, this is the boss of he's the head honcho of the biggest crime organization in the world, you know.
Yeah.
And he does it well. He's really good. I was just thinking, actually, something just crossed my mind. You know, at the very start where they're talking about the whole prostitution rackets as well. Now, remember, Severine in Skyfall belonged to sort of the Macau trade, didn't she?
Yeah, she did.
So that could potentially be a link, because loads of people are saying, oh yeah, the whole sort of Spectre thing, okay, I can understand Casino and Quantum, but not Skyfall. What's that got to do with it? Well, maybe Severine was part of their, you know, sex trade women, and she serviced Silver because, you she was
absolutely
one of theirs.
That would make sense. That actually ties in. Yeah, but if Silver's not produced, completely. Good stuff. Okay, so then we have they're having a little catch up, and then he basically says that all the excitement in Mexico City rang a distant bell, and now it all makes perfect sense. And then there's the line which is in the full trailer, where he says, "Welcome, James. It's been a long time." And then he turns and looks right at him, which I thought was a nice touch. And Bond looks genuinely shit up at that point, doesn't he? He looks genuinely like, "Oh my God, what's going on?"
I'm really glad you said that.
Yeah,
I'm really glad you said that, because he never normally does he? And you can see he looks panicked. Even when he first mentions James, he sort of looks as if he sort of gulped a bit, or he's nervous. But yeah, that I mean, if you're Bond, you're suddenly surrounded by people who would easily kill you, if not easily kill you, but you know what I mean, under the orders sort of thing. You would be shit up. There's something I was just going to say about Blofeld himself. When he's sitting down at the table, he keeps his right hand on the table and he doesn't move it. So he's sitting there. His right hand is always on the table. Now that is. It's flicking a memory in there about something Bond related, and I can't put my mind on it. I don't know if Dr. No did the same thing on his table. I don't know if he did. Maybe he didn't. But there's something about the way that his left hand is down by his lap, but his right hand is always on the table, and it's definitely links to something. I just can't quite remember what yet, but that's definitely.
Well, let's throw that out to the JBR family. If that's rung any bells with you, let us know. Yeah, because it feels like this is the sort of film where we're going to be discovering little nuggets like that for years to come. Where we're going to go, oh, didn't notice that. Look at that little nod. Yeah. I feel like that's gonna happen for sure.
Definitely.
Go on.
And there was a bit prior to the whole Bond bit, obviously the Hinks bit, which we mentioned during Hinks' thing, where. I love the fact that there's so much silence and longevity between stuff happening. So he'll do his little head turn, the guy will come over, a couple of like mumbled whispers, and then he'll like call someone else. He'll take a while to come over. He'll speak to him. This is all in silence, which I think makes it all the more sort of powerful in a way. And then the guy sort of, does anyone want to challenge Monsieur Guiara for a position to take over Sciarra? And then obviously we get the whole Hinks entrance, which we mentioned is fucking ace. It's so good. Takes out Guiara and sits down. And then obviously it cuts back to Blofeld, and then he sort of mentions the whole familiarity of it all. But Jay, he looks proper shut up, doesn't he, Bond? When,
Absolutely.
And
so obviously he jumps out the window. He's had enough. He's buggering off. He doesn't want to stick around. So there's that. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Rome car chase at length in its own episode coming up soon. So basically, after that Spectre meeting, the next time we see him is fast forward all the way to the post-train scene where Bond and Madeline kind of rock up to Blofeld's crater base. So basically, the first little meeting is obviously they rock up and the servant guy comes with the silver platter and he takes his gun and all this kind of stuff.
Which is very...
Go on.
Very Live and Let Die.
Very Live and Let Die.
At the end of Live and Let Die, when I don't know, is it Whisper? I think it might be Whisper, is holding out the silver tray and there's champagne on it, I think. And he puts a gun on and takes the champagne and says, keep the change, or something like that. I'm sure that rings
a very strong, it rings a distant bell, Chris.
Oh, a distant bell.
Very nice. So then we have the little meteorite room, which I think is, man, this is such a cool scene. This is straight out of classic Bond. There they are. It's bathed in darkness, meteorite in the middle of the room, and he has like a brilliant Bond villain moment, man, where it's like, they always do it, don't they? It's like they always do it. This is his equivalent of the minnows pretending they're whales. $1 million. You were wondering what it cost. All that. This is his one of those.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can touch it if you want. And then they have that discussion about the meteors gaining momentum and unleashing its force on the world where it makes its mark and all that kind of stuff. Man, that is a classic Bond villain speech if I've ever heard one. Man, I fucking love this scene.
I like. There's two things about this. I think one, they could have done it so that was the first time we saw Blofeld. Because if you think about Dr. No, we don't see him until the last third. Silver, we don't see him until super late into the film. We hear about those characters, but we don't see them. They could have so easily have done the meeting without Blofeld, but obviously mentioned the boss or whatever, created that persona, and then we'll get the impact of first seeing him. But I'm really glad they didn't. I'm really glad, obviously, they did the meeting thing earlier because it's so bloody good. But it still had that length of time that when we do see him in the meteor room, it still has that impact of, wow, we haven't seen him for a while, sort of thing. And
the thing is, you barely see him. You just see half of his face come out of shadow, and that's it. You don't see the rest of him, so you can't really tell if he's wearing his jacket or not. You know what I mean? That's the important part, really. Let's face it. And I love how he there he is, and he takes like one step forward and just looms up out of the darkness. I love that, man. I think that's brilliant. And obviously he's got his Nehru jacket on, and you're like, yes, there he is in all his glory. Now, one thing makes me very uncomfortable about this, Chris. Can you tell me what it is?
That you don't wear any socks like him.
Well, no, that's it. Do you know, that's one of the first things I noticed. I'm like, oh, Blofeld's not wearing any socks. And for some reason, that just creeped me out. I don't know why. There's nothing wrong with not wearing socks. I'm fond of a flip-flop now and then. But
that's a bit different, though, I think, with a flip-flop compared to shoes.
Imagine if he'd rocked up in a pair of flip-flops, man. That would have been cool. But no, he's got those kind of espadrille type shoes on, I suppose, with no socks on. And I that just kind of like caught me for some reason. I don't know why I was so drawn to it. But yeah, Blofeld doesn't wear socks.
I think because it is such irregularity.
There it is, you did it.
I got there in the end. Woo! That I guess it is just strange, isn't it? Like you don't see people wearing shoes without socks that often. Yeah. And I think it just added to his creepiness. I like the bit when First Bond comes in and he's like, "Oh, I think we're meant to be impressed," and obviously they're not. And but yeah, the whole story about the meteorite parallel to Spectre is brilliant. I think that's fantastic. and obviously created the creator therein. I think it's brilliant. And he comes in and he's just got that creepy vibe. And there's a bit where he steps down and he mentions that first, the whole touch it. He comes into light, steps down, and then he doesn't say anything for about 5-6 seconds, where he's just looking at Bond, and then he suddenly is like, "I'm so glad you could be here. I'm so glad we're all together." And it's just that. Those few seconds where he's, this is the moment he's been waiting for.
Yeah.
Blofeld has been waiting for ages. Obviously, he has. He's been planning, or we hear that he's sort of behind all of this. So this is like his favourite day. The best thing, the best Christmas present he ever could have had is Bond trapped in front of him. So he could do what he likes to him, and you can tell that suddenly he breaks into the smile. And he's a happy chappy, I think, and that's really cool. Waltz is brilliant when he does that.
Yeah, he does the psycho so well, that dude, doesn't he? It's kind of like Samuel L. Jackson is always going to play a foul-mouthed, sort of no-nonsense kind of dude who just goes around swearing at people. And Christoph Waltz is always going to be a lunatic on some level, and that's just what they do. And he's there's no better choice for Blofeld than Christoph Waltz, I don't think. But yeah, so there's that creepy little bit which we mentioned before, where he says he remembers going to Madeline's house when she was a little girl, and she's like, "I don't remember that," and he's like, "I do," which is really creepy. It is creepy. He is just a creepy dude, isn't he? Like, we've always said how there's different Blofelds. You had the sort of the Telly Savalas Blofeld, who was trying to woo Tracy and was a bit of a ladies' man, who was a tough guy, kind of like Largo. Then you had Donald's Blofeld, who was very creepy and like horrible. I imagine he had a really clammy handshake. That probably had a really unhealthy relationship with his own mother. Things like that, I imagine Donald's Blofeld got up to. And then obviously we had Charles Gray's Blofeld as well, who was just sort of this sort of, I don't know, just camp dude, I suppose, who liked dressing up in ladies' clothing. And now you've got Christoph. So I suppose we'll compare the Blofelds in a little while. We'll get to that in a bit, I reckon. So we get the Bond villain tour of the base, don't we? Yeah. So we've got the the control room and all that kind of stuff, and
with all his minions,
and Bond trying to sort of goad him, saying that psychiatric wards are full of visionaries and all this kind of stuff. And
straight all out of Dr. No, that isn't it?
Straight out of Dr. No, absolutely. Yeah. We've got the author of All Your Pain line. Now, this is something I feel needs to be said. Again, some of the criticisms I've been reading online is that people, because they don't like the Oberhauser Blofeld connection from when they were kids with Bond and all that kind of stuff, and they seem to sort of think that Spectre, he put Spectre together purely to piss off Bond.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not what this is. Basically what it is, as far as I understand it, is he's a lunatic, puts together this huge organization, and he's got all these different kind of evil schemes going along around the world. And over the last 3 movies, Bond has kind of stumbled into those without really realizing who was behind it all. And then obviously he turns up at the Spectre meeting and Blofeld's got to take action against him. And that's what it is. He says, I'm the author of All Your Pain and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, he is, because at the end of the day, all the people close to him, M and Vesper, have ended up dead because ultimately he was behind those plans. So I feel like there's a misconception that thing of them knowing each other when they were kids means that Spectre only exists to piss off Bond, and I don't think that's true. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that. But no, I don't think that, because, Spectre's obviously been going for a long time. It's not as if he couldn't have got Bond sooner, really, like if he wanted to. Obviously, he's caused sort of pain to Bond during, that we've seen, supposedly, in the last 3 films. But, I mean, I can see why some people are saying it. And if that is the case, it does kind of weaken the villain's plot, if his plot is just it's a bit of daddy issues and just to get Bond. But Spectre is doing loads of stuff going on. They're mentioning about terrorist stuff all over the world. They want to get the surveillance. None of that's to do with just Bond, is it? That's to take over the world type thing. That's to control the national security of all these countries, the Nine Eyes countries. Yeah. So I think Bond is just like an added bonus. If Bond if Bond hadn't stumbled across sort of Vesper, shall we say, then Spectre and Blofeld would still be doing what they're doing, but just Bond wouldn't be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, that's totally how I see it too. So there we have it. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in future episodes, we're going to kind of take the kind of the climax scenes that lead up to the end of the film and sort of do those episode by episode. So essentially, to kind of round out this episode, we're just going to be talking about like the Blofeld character and that kind of stuff, and the actual sort of the ABC of what actually happens in the film we're going to save for future episodes, so don't worry too much about that. So obviously he ends up by the end of the film with the scar. How did you feel about that?
I was really happy. I mean, it's interesting because obviously when the explosion happens and he falls off, you kind of think, oh God, something's bad happened. But when he's going through MI6 and he sees him, and then he turns around, you are like, oh, that's it. I remember us looking at a still of the teaser trailer of Blofeld and Shadow in the Spectre meeting room, going, "Is that a scar? Is that a scar? Oh, I don't think. Is it a scar? No, is it a scar? Maybe is that a scar? I don't know. It might be a scar." And we were like focusing, trying to get in, and it looked like a shadow was on his face. Was it a scar? So that's obviously in our minds part of that character. That is part of Blofeld. It's only Donald Pleasance that has one like that. But it's kind of part of that mythos, isn't it, of Blofeld and who that character is. So when we actually got a glimpse of that in the film, I was like, you get the white cat, you've got the scar. Is he going to go bold in the next one? I don't know. If he doesn't, I don't mind. If he does, brilliant. But all of that stuff worked. I thought the scar and the cat, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how his eye is all mangled as well. Now it's like a completely white blind eye, which I thought was a cool little touch.
Yeah, it's similar to Le Chiffre's actually, because Le Chiffre, is weeping blood. His eye is a little bit that way as well.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued. What I can't wait to see is obviously, his scar was all bloody because it was fresh. I'm excited to see when it's like healed up, so it will be like a healed scar like Donald's would have been. That's going to be exciting to see. So let's talk about Christoph's Blofeld versus the other Blofelds then. So, so like we said, the first Blofelds we see, obviously we didn't actually see. We just had the voice and the kind of faceless figure behind a screen or wherever he was with the pussycat. Absolutely. The pussycat definitely deserves a mention for showing up this time. Excellent.
The pussycat.
And I thought like they did that so well. If he'd have sat in like a high backed chair and had swiveled round stroking the pussycat, being like, "I've been expecting you, Mr. Bond," it would have been like, oh dear, that's too, that's the Dr. Evil thing that you got to be careful of.
Yeah.
But also what I didn't want it to be so understated that it was never a thing. And the fact that the pussycat's there and you see him, pick him up and just give him a little kiss and then put him down again. That was so nice because it was so it was understated, but at the same time we saw Blofeld holding the white pussycat and giving him a kiss. I was very pleased by that.
That's exactly what you want, though, isn't it? Yeah. It's that fine line, and like we said before, they've hit the nail on the head. They've done it exactly the right level, shown us exactly the right amount of what we wanted, of what we needed, and done it in a classy way. Yeah,
completely.
So
getting back to the other Blofelds, then. So the first Blofeld we ever actually saw, full facial, full frontal, so to speak, was Donald. Who totally had the whole spin around in the chair moment with holding the pussycat. Then, of course, obviously after that, we had Telly Savalas with his scarless Blofeld, still bald though, up there on Peace Gloria. And then after that, obviously, we had Charles Gray. 3 very different performances from 3 very different actors. It's almost like they could be playing a different character, each of those. They are very different Blofelds. So how do you feel Christoph compares to those other guys?
Okay, so in terms of similarity, I would say his closest verbally would possibly be Donald's Blofeld, perhaps. There's a slight creepiness to him, which Donald's Blofeld definitely had. It's not so much the whole, goodbye, Mr. Bond, anything like that. Although he does say goodbye, James Bond, which I really liked, actually. So he gets that line in. It's a lot more understated than that. But in terms of I don't know. There's a little bit of him in there, maybe. In terms of Savalas, I think he's definitely not like Savalas in any way that I can think of.
Yeah.
You can't imagine him trying to chat up a girl. You can't really imagine him doing sort of action scenes. We saw him on the helicopter looking pretty frightened, so he's not sort of, like that. The Charles Gray one, he's a bit similar to the Charles Gray one, I suppose. Charles Gray one is very...
Do you know what I thought after watching that? I feel like he's basically got a bit of Charles Gray in him. He's got a bit of Donald in him, and he's got a lot of Christoph Waltz in him.
Yes,
and I feel like it's a blend of those three, I reckon.
Yeah, that's what I completely agree with that. Yeah, definitely, and it turns out well for sure. It's good.
Absolutely.
It's good.
So there we have it. I guess that kind of rounds out today's episode. Just a look at Blofeld, the man, in today's episode. Now,
could be one more question if you want.
Go on then, throw it at me.
Okay, Bond 25.
Well, he's coming back. He has to, because at the end of the day, and again, I'm still not revealing my theory.
No.
I'm saving it.
I'll try to catch you up.
I'm still not going to reveal it. It's very sneaky of you. At the end of the day, when does a Bond villain ever get taken into custody at the end? Never.
Koskov.
He's the only time. All right. There you go. All right. Fucking hell, pissing on my bonfire. Right. So yeah, Koskov. But let's face it. When does it ever happen? It doesn't. They either get killed or they're Blofeld and they escape. Or their Jaws and their escape. And that's it. So he's too big of a deal to be one and done. Now, in the early drafts of the script, Bond does indeed shoot him on the bridge, and that was it. That was game over for Blofeld. Yeah. That would have been a huge mistake. When we saw the film for the first time, I was sitting there going, please don't shoot him. Please don't shoot him. Because if they'd have killed off Blofeld, I'd have walked out of that film gutted.
I couldn't believe how that could even be considered.
No.
Because it's like, you've got through 50 years of legal battles to get this character back, pretty much.
Yeah.
You don't want to kill him off in the first film, do you? He's there.
Absolutely.
You can't. There's no way. That would have just been absolutely stupid.
That is insanity that was even thought of. So my argument is, I feel, and obviously we're going to talk about these scenes in detail along with the climax, obviously. My argument is, I don't think we shouldn't have seen Blofeld looking nervous and worried in that helicopter. We shouldn't, at this point, he should have just been the cold, calculating mastermind, and we should have never seen him struggle with anything. And the fact that
we had that idea, didn't we, of maybe like he had a button in a helicopter and he pushed it, and like a special reinforced sort of thing came round him, like a Bartha sub, but not a Bartha sub.
The Bartha sub should have come out the bottom into the Thames, and he should have fucked off, and that would have been the last we saw of him. That would have done it, yeah.
That would have been. Do you think, honestly now, if the helicopter was about to crash, and there was a button to drop him from the helicopter into the Thames, and he disappeared, would you have been happy with that, or would you have gone, man, that's stupid, that's ludicrous?
In all honesty, I don't want to see Christoph in a Bartho sub. That's silly talk. That would make me laugh, the concept of it. But no. Lower, not up. Don't want to see that. But what I do think is, I think he should have escaped. I really do. I think he should have got away with it at the end, because that's what Blofeld does. He never gets caught. He never gets killed until the final showdown, which has to come in a future film, obviously. Yeah. So that's my argument about the end there. But yeah, so I feel he should have definitely got away. Don't feel like he should have been taken into custody. They should never have killed him. So not even considered the fact that he killed him. But my only thought is maybe they take him into custody at the end because they have an idea for the next one. Yeah, which means he has to be in custody at the beginning of the film for that idea to work.
I'm pretty sure that must be the case,
because they must be thinking that they must have like an arc of Blofeld films in the back of their mind. They have to. Sure. It would be silly not to.
They definitely.
Yeah, and considering what they've done with this film, they've like ticked off the list of all the classic elements we've won. They must be thinking that way.
Okay, so here's a question. Okay, so Blofeld, he's obviously going to come back. Do you think we'll ever see the equivalent of a number 2? like a Largo or a Dr. No or anyone that's under Blofeld but is still right up there in terms of Spectre? Or do you think it's just going to be Blofeld here on? Because that's another interesting take they could do.
Yeah,
or is that going into speculation?
That's good. Yeah, I mean, it is speculation, but I don't think they can do the number 2, number 3 thing anymore because, Robert Wagner in Austin Powers was called number 2, wasn't he?
Not necessarily in terms of numbers, but I mean, have a character like a Dr. No or a Largo who's below Blofeld, but he could be the main villain for a film while Blofeld's in the background.
I see what you're saying.
Do you think that could still happen or not?
I think ultimately it's a shame they only got the rights when they did, because if they'd have had the rights back in 2006, they could have actually had the scene where you see Blofeld behind a screen or something. It could have been a completely different actor, but they could have done that through, but obviously they didn't. So essentially, with the way they've tied it up with Spectre, with the last 3 films, that is essentially what those villains are now, aren't they? They are, smaller fry working for Spectre, essentially. So I guess that is what they've done. I feel like what might happen is we'll get 1 or 2 more Blofeld-related films where he'll be the main villain, and there'll be another villain as well that's, like a mixed Mr. Hinks type, or even Mr. Hinks again, you never know. And then when the next dude takes over, we'll probably have a rest from Spectre for a few films, and then that sort of thing will start up again, I would imagine.
Unless they kill Blofeld off at the end of Daniel's reign.
Well, yeah, I think they probably will. But in the sense that I imagine when the next fella takes over, it'll be a bit of a clean slate, and they could bring him back and potentially.
So you think he'll be reincarnated again, like further in the future years?
Because he's Blofeld, isn't he? You know what I mean? It's like it's you could quite easily say this is the Daniel Craig timeline, and then the next Bond actor is that is the Michael.
It's interesting, isn't it? That Michael Fassbender. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That whole narrative, the timeline, how it shifts, certain connections. Certain people are really not happy with how some things don't correlate. Other people don't care. Yeah. But sometimes it's based on the character, their time, the actor and their timeline with the character. It is a confusing thing because you just don't get that in any other franchise, do you?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In any other film series, but it does.
I mean, for example, a perfect example would be the Batman series, wouldn't it? In the sense that you have Christian Bale series, and then that ends, and then obviously Ben Affleck comes along. Old Batfleck, and that's going to be completely unrelated. It's going to be like a completely different universe. Yeah, and
the Michael Keaton.
And then Michael Keaton one again. So it just is what it is. So I think, I don't know. It'll be interesting because this is the first time the Bond films have been so one united story throughout the whole thing. Because obviously from Dr. No to From Russia, there was that kind of link of, the whole idea was revenge for the death of Dr. No. So everyone said Quantum was the first direct sequel to me, but From Russia was the first direct sequel, because the story directly tied in. So I don't know. It just depends how they play it, because obviously you have the throwbacks to Majesties and Fioro's Only and License to Kill, completely different Bond actors, but it's still there. Yeah. So I'm just intrigued to see when the next guy does pick up the Walther, whether this is a real true reboot in the sense that they will maybe reference Vesper. Do you know what I mean? Or whether it would go back to referencing Tracy Once Upon a Time, or whether it's just, I don't know. It's going to be intriguing to see how that plays out.
Straight, because there's a lot of people are mentioning a lot of similarities between Swan and Tracy, aren't they? Obviously, we mentioned it a bit as well. But I think for that to happen, because obviously there's Vesper that's happened, but I think for anything similar to Tracy, if Swan was involved, we'd need a lot more of the Bond Swan, which we might get in the next one and maybe the one after, but we'll see. But obviously that's something else. But it'll be so interesting now they've got control of this character. What we see, what we get in the next few Bond films, it's going to be. It's good, isn't it? Because how it could go a million ways, and it's going to be exciting. And from what we've seen, they're going to do it well. So exciting times.
Absolutely exciting times indeed. I am just over the moon. Blofeld's back, man. Like I said, when I saw the word Spectre slowly building on that screen last December when they announced the title of the film. I remember my reaction. I could not believe my eyes. It was like I dreamed of that for so long. I remember being 13, GoldenEye comes out, and thinking, man, wouldn't it be so cool if they could bring back Spectre and, Pierce could go up against Blofeld again? That would be so brilliant. And then finally, here we are.
Very nice.
I didn't even mean to do that. And here it is. And I'm just so happy that Blofeld's back. It's like all my Christmases have come at once. I'm so happy. I love it.
Do you think this current incarnation of Blofeld within this film, for people who aren't Bond fans or Bond fanatics or who aren't really aware of Blofeld, do you think that had an adverse effect on them watching this film, or do you think, it's just another villain, but it still worked?
I feel like they have no fucking idea, to be honest, Chris. I think that the average moviegoer, has the Austin Powers thing, I think, has genuinely damaged the whole thing, the whole Blofeld thing, because when you see the man with the pussycat, the average person on the street thinks Dr. Evil. They don't think Ernst Stavro Blofeld. So that is a really damaging thing. I don't think and again, these movie reviewers, man, I don't think they've got a fucking clue what they're talking about, because they just don't get it, man. They don't get they don't get who was on that screen. No. They don't get the Majesty's connection. They don't get it goes all the way back to Connery, and how annoying it is that you had all this build up through all of Connery's movies and George's movie, and then it's just fucking dropped and ignored, and you never got any payoff. And finally, there it is on the screen, and we're gonna get that confrontation. And I just don't think anyone is taking that into account as far as the critics are going. No,
but in terms of like the normal person who just wanted to watch a film, great, new Bond's out, let's go and watch it. They go to watch it. They don't know who Blofeld is. But do you think that didn't matter? Do you think they could still watch that film and enjoy it and just go, there's a villain called Blofeld?
For sure.
He talked to Bond. So I don't think it would have had any negative effect on someone who was just going to watch a Bond film who didn't know.
No, it's not like, there were loads of references to the past Daniel movies, obviously, throughout. I feel that's all you'd need to see for if the average person is going in. But again, they don't. If they don't know who Blofeld is, it's like you have to go back to Dr. No and start over again and watch everything, because it's fucking Blofeld, man. He's back,
Yeah.
But in terms of the average moviegoer enjoying this film experience, I feel like not seeing Casino through to Skyfall would make them scratch their chin at a few things. But other than that,
it would still be all right.
It would still be all right. What do you think?
I agree. I think the average person. I went with my housemate. She she's not a big Bond fan, but she doesn't mind it. She's seen quite a few, enjoyed quite a few, like Casino and stuff. But just really enjoyed it. She wouldn't have had a clue about Blofeld. Would have remembered there's a guy with a white cat, but to her, she really enjoyed it. So she thought it was good. And you went with your missus as well, didn't you? Did she like it as well?
Yeah, well, she went on her own because she's over in the States at the moment. I'm in the UK.
Of course she is. Yeah.
But yeah, no, she went and she her review was a 2-word review.
Right.
She went, it was ... and I was like, oh no. Please, because obviously a lot of the Americans don't like it for whatever reason, and I thought, shit.
Well, a lot of the Americans on our post like it.
That's true, but that is true. And then it came through capital letters, fucking awesome. And then she said, I want to watch it again immediately. Wow. So I was very happy with that review. Yeah. So
nice
there's a thumbs up from Mrs. Bond. Absolutely. So I'm very pleased with that, and I'm sure I'll be taking her to see it many times when I go back to the States soon.
Lovely, jubbly. So there we are, Blofeld. Lots to talk about, lots to discuss.
Speaking of which, Jesus Christ, this is a story I need to tell you.
Right.
When I was on the phone with the missus yesterday, discussing the film at length, as I have with anybody who's been willing to listen to me over the last couple of weeks. Back in 2012, my missus used to do a bit of work in the old movie business. She only had dinner with Blofeld.
What?
Yeah, there was some like movie industry thing in Cancun, Mexico, where like a Sony event basically, where all these people were going there to show off the films that were coming out, and obviously it was going to be Skyfall, and he was there, was totally unconnected to Bond, and she ended up at a dinner table with him, like literally sitting next to Christoph Waltz at dinner. I was like, whoa. oh, that's amazing.
Did she have a chat to him? Was he?
Yeah,
was
she
he
said he
all
was
right?
really lovely, really nice.
So
guy.
she's sat next to Robert Davi, Frank Sanchez, and Christoph Waltz Blofeld.
Yeah,
oh my
absolutely.
God.
Yeah,
Awesome.
So, that is good. So she's at dinner with Blofeld. I'm really jealous.
Oh,
yeah.
me
There we
too.
go. Anyway, all right,
Right.
cool. So that's the episode of Ernst Stavro Blofeld in the bag. As per usual, 30 Days of Spectre will continue tomorrow morning, as per usual. Again, you can listen to us when you're having your Frosties or your Alpen or your All-Bran, if you like to keep things moving in that department. That's
a little bit regular.
It's always a good option to go for, and your prune juice. Until then, I've been Tom Sears.
I have been Chris Wright.
And JBR will return in the morning. We'll see you then.
See you tomorrow, everyone.
Bye. Bye.